Hello. So we're doing day 2 of Unit 6, which is simplifying rational expressions. So we talked about this word rational before. It has the word ratio. So it means you're going to have a fraction. All right. We're going to be looking at expressions that are fractions. All right. And first we're going to simplify them, and then we'll multiply and divide them. All right. So first of all, rational expressions, all right, are a ratio, which means it's a fraction, all right, of polynomials. So you have, you have a bunch of terms, and there's a few things that you need to remember. And then number one is the rules of exponents. Okay, so if you're multiplying variables, right, you're going to add the exponents. So, for example, this would be a to the first power times a to the third power, which is a to the fourth power, because we're going to add 1 plus 3, and we get 4, right? Because I have a times a to the third. All right, that's a to the third, and so that would be a to the fourth, because I have 1, 2, 3, 4 a's multiplied together. Then if I'm dividing, I'm going to subtract the exponents, all right? Dividing, and here's b to the first power, so I'm going to take 3 minus 1 is 2, right? 3 minus 1 is 2, because if I have 3 b's multiplied and then I divide by 1, this cancels out, right? That's 1, a number divided by itself, and so what I have is b squared. Okay. So you're going to subtract if you are dividing, and we've talked about these before. Then if you have a power of a power, all right, you're going to, if you have a power of a power, which is this, where here's a power, c squared, and then I have that to the third power, all right? What I do is I multiply the exponents, okay? These two powers here, I'm going to multiply. 2 times 3 is equal to 6. Okay? Because what I have is c squared, and I have it 3 times, right? To the c squared to the third power. So that is c to the 6th. And we've talked about before, anything to the 0 power is equal to 1, no matter how big or small. Anything to the 0 power is 1. And the other thing is, if you have a negative exponent, it doesn't make the number negative. It moves that number to the denominator. All right, so that went down here. So I'll have to put in 1 on top, so I have a numerator. All right, it's the reciprocal. All right, if you have a negative exponent, right, that's going to be a reciprocal. It flips it. All right, and then we reviewed factoring, right? And we used our I can't remember how to spell it. Polysmelt. All right, we have that new app, which will be helpful for factoring. And then you can cross out if you are multiplying and dividing. You can cancel numbers out, okay? You can cancel if you're multiplying and dividing, okay, but not if you are adding and subtracting, right, fractions. And the last thing is, and the main thing, you'll see number 3 probably doesn't make sense until we're going to practice that today. This, though, this is really, really important, and we'll see this comes up for the rest of the year, really. You cannot have a 0 in the denominator. You can't divide by 0. And you learned this when you were in Algebra 1. We said if you had a slope and it came out to be 2 divided by 0, right? If you had a slope equal to 2 divided by 0, that was undefined. Because that means you went up 2, here's your point, you went up 2, and then you don't go over, right? So that was a vertical line, right? If I go that has an undefined slope. All right, so if there's a 0 in the denominator, you cannot, it's undefined. You can't divide 0. All right, so go ahead and let's try that on the calculator. All right, if I take any number, take my 6 divided by 0. All right, and it says error. And it even tells you the error is you can't divide by 0. All right? Because remember, if I take 6 divided by 0, I'm saying what times 0 equals 6? Well, there's no number. Anything times 0 is 0. Okay? So that's impossible. You can't do it. Okay? So what happens, though, is you might have, in this section, you're going to have, if you have a fraction, you have 2 divided by this polynomial here. All right? So we're saying this polynomial can't, this is my denominator, so this cannot equal 0, right? So if x is negative 3, right, if I put a negative 3 in here, I would have negative 3 plus 3, right? And that would be 0. And then that would be, that's in my denominator, so that means x cannot equal negative 3, because that would give me a 0 in the denominator, and that is that's called an excluded value. My negative 3 is excluded. All right? That's a value for x that is impossible. So, good old simplifying, right? Simplify. And then we're also going to state the excluded value. So the number that will make, we have to make sure the denominator cannot equal 0. That would be bad. That's impossible. That's an error. All right? So looking at this example, I have 8 divided by 16, and that reduces to 1/2, right? I can say, hold on. All right, 8 divided by 8 is 1, and 16 divided by 8 is 2. All right, so that gives me, that reduces it to 1/2. I could also, and then when I do, I could also do that on my calculator. So if I do alpha y equals, and I'm going to have 8 divided by 16. All right, now hit enter. That shows me that that reduces to 1/2. Okay, because they both have a greatest common factor of 8. All right, so I could also do math num 9. All right, and I'm looking at 8, 16. And so that says my greatest common divisor, all right, greatest common factor there is 8. So that means I can divide everything by 8, all right? If my GCD is 8, then I can divide 8 divided by 8 is 1, and 16 divided by 8 is 2. All right. Now the variables are easy. All I have to do is subtract, right? So I have, both of them are m's, and then I'm going to take 5 minus 4, right? My exponent would be 5 minus 4, right? And that's equal to 1, and so that's why I have just m by itself. Okay. Now my denominator cannot equal 0, all right? So if I have the m here, see how m is all by itself? All right, so if m is equal to 0, then that denominator would be 0, because it's 16 times 0 equals 0, right? 0 to the 4th power is 0. 16, that would make it 0. All right, so if m equals 0, then my denominator would be 0. And I can't have that. So that means m, and this means is not equal to 0. So that would be my excluded value. All right. So over here, number 2. So we've got 25 and 25. All right. So the GCD of 25 and 25 is 25, right? A number divided by itself is 1. And then now I have, I'm dividing, so I'm going to subtract my exponents. So I'll take 4 minus 3 is 1. So that is equal to x to the first power, right? And so that is my final answer. All right, this right here, this 1/2 m would be my final answer. So, but then remember I have to do excluded values. There are value, I have to look at the denominator. Okay, I have to look at the denominator, 25x cubed, and that cannot equal 0. All right? Or I'll set it equal to 0. How about this? I'll set it equal to 0, and I've got to see what values of x would make that equal to 0. All right? So if I look for my zeros, I could do Polly Schmelz and get see my zeros.